Immigration and citizenship have become a new battleground in American politics and the culture wars. Some argue that residency and eventual citizenship should come only through currently legal channels. Others note that immigration quotas are far more restricted than under historic norms. Please let us know your views on the key components of immigration reform.
Our country very much needs immigration reform. And by comprehensive immigration reform, I mean basically bringing our labor market needs into line with our official immigration policy. That is going to require adjustment of official policy. It is going to require some plan for dealing with the 11 million people who are here illegally already, many of them working, and of course they can't all be deported. We need to have a plan where people have worked hard, have paid taxes, have behaved themselves, that they're on a case-by-case basis, they can go to the back of the line and work their way to legal status. But we need to bring official policy into line with our labor needs. We also need to enforce the law. Enforce the law with employers and enforce the law at our borders. On that, I do have some credentials because I'm chairman of the Homeland Security Appropriations Subcommittee. And under my leadership, we have increased the Border Patrol presence at the southwest border by 60%. We have undertaken various measures on an emergency basis, actually, this past summer, various measures to deal with the threat of cartel violence. We have a problem at the border. But as Border Patrol agents will be the first to tell you, you're not going to enforce your way out of this challenge. You're going to have a comprehensive solution so that we have a law that we can and will enforce.
Thank you, Congressman. Dr. Lawson, you have 90 seconds.
I congratulate and agree with Mr. Price on the need to enforce border security. That is one thing that the federal government should be doing. We haven't been doing a very good job, and we absolutely need to step that up. I also do not necessarily know what he means when he talks about case by case. In fact, I get very uncomfortable when I hear people talking about immigration reform accompanied by the word case by case. We need a system of law that treats everybody equally and doesn't leave discretion for someone who knows to use case-by-case discretion on who gets in and who doesn't. We must enforce our existing immigration laws. We cannot engage in anything resembling immigration reform or comprehensive immigration reform unless we have a history of enforcing our immigration laws, because if we reward people for breaking the law and entering in illegally, what we have done is we have essentially we have completely subverted and shown no respect for the 600,000 people who have chosen to enter this country legally for the right reasons. So I will not support amnesty. And finally, I do not know what it means to have an immigration policy that reflects our labor market when we have 10% unemployment. We need more jobs. We do not need more workers.
Congressman Price, you have 30 seconds to rebuttal.
What you just heard is a good example of what's wrong with our politics. It's easier to talk about amnesty than to really think about this, isn't it? Amnesty is a slogan. Nobody's talking amnesty. We're talking about dealing with, on a case-by-case basis, people who have been here, who've worked, who've paid taxes, and who would go to the end of the line and be on the path to legal status. What you've just heard is an enforcement-only approach to this problem. I don't know any small business person, any farmer, any nurseryman, anybody in the hospitality industry who thinks this is only an enforcement issue.
Thank you, Congressman.
With entitlements representing 57% of the total federal budget, what would you do to reduce such entitlements or generate revenue to offset them?
And Dr. Lawson has 90 seconds.
I think we need to address the two biggest entitlements initially, Medicare and Social Security. We've talked before, and I've written extensively at my website, it's extremely well documented, how we can actually reduce the amount of money that we're paying into the healthcare system while still providing, and in fact improving upon, a safety net for people who desperately need it. We can get unnecessary administrative costs out of healthcare, improve quality, and decrease costs. Great examples of how to do that. With respect to Social Security, we have to find a transition plan, but first we have to be honest about the fact that we have been defaulting on Social Security for the past 20 years. Every year that we have spent the Social Security surplus and put what was deemed surplus into special issue treasuries that cannot be sold on the open market, but must be redeemed by the Treasury with interest. Folks, Social Security is a mathematical Ponzi scheme. The money has been spent. Special issue treasuries cannot be sold. They can only be redeemed by the Treasury. We have to start talking about common sense things to preserve what safety net is, what Medicare is, or Social Security is, which is a safety net for people who've been unable to save for retirement. So that's going to mean means testing potentially. It'll mean raising the retirement age, potentially eliminating the cap on Social Security contributions, while at the same time providing for our younger generation to transition out of Social Security and into a system where you actually own your retirement savings. Retirement is too important to allow politicians to spend it at their whim every year as part of the general fund.
Thank you, Dr. Lawson. Congressman Price has 90 seconds.
We have gone dangerously into debt in this country in the last 8 years, and we simply must, for reasons that I stressed earlier, we must climb our way out. So it's really a worse situation than it was back in the 90s when we balanced the budget. Our politics are so much more polarized and partisan that it's hard to imagine coming together, but we must come together. And we must get this done. One party cannot do it alone. And so entitlements, by all means, must be on the table. It is a major part of the challenge. So is the tax code. So is appropriated spending. So is everything. And politicians aren't credible who say, oh, yes, I care about the deficit, but this or that sacred cow of mine is not going to be dealt with. So I wish Erskine Bowles and Alan Simpson well as they undertake this commission task. It is extremely important. It is extremely difficult. And we all have a stake in getting back on that path we were on in the 90s, where we not only balanced the budget, but paid off several $100 billion of this country's debt. Having said that, it is a sacred obligation to stand by the promises we've made in Social Security. Using terms like Ponzi scheme don't help. The U.S. Treasury has never defaulted on a bond, and we're not going to start now. So yes, when Social Security was running a surplus, it bought Treasury bonds. Those are as good as gold. But there are long-term challenges. Those are long-term challenges that must be addressed, and I trust will be addressed.
Thank you, Congressman Price. Dr. Lawson, you have 30 seconds.
With all due respect, calling a Treasury bond good as gold kind of ignores the fact that gold is over $1,300 an ounce. Commodities open lock limit up today because everyone's looking and knowing who's buying these Treasury bonds. This Federal Reserve is now the second largest holder of U.S. Treasury bonds. Folks, we are in extremely dangerous water. Finally, I will say that I am extremely uncomfortable with the idea that my elected representative is happy delegating these weighty decisions to an unelected committee of two guys working in a smoke-filled room.
Thank you.
That's wrong.